Hey everybody, welcome to a quick training here. For a while now, I've been thinking about I just need to do some videos to just help people wherever they are, and I got this idea that I would just kind of pick from all my uh, index cards of content, ideas, and things like that that I have. Whatever I pick, I'll just go ahead and do a quick video on. And today, for my first one, go figure, I pulled the card False Prisons of the Mind. And I was like, oh my God, that's literally a workshop, let alone a quick training video. So I decided I just wanted to pull two different ones from this idea of false prisons of the mind. And the two false prisons of the mind I want to talk about are shame and also embarrassment. And a lot of times those two things go hand in hand. And the reason that I call them false prisons of the mind is because if you think about prison, very rarely do we put our own self in a prison, right? Something or someone else puts us in a prison. But once we're in that prison, we might be able to start thinking, it's like, well, I'm in a prison, so I'm bad and wrong, right? And this and that, the other. And that's kind of what shame and embarrassment does. Shame and embarrassment traps our minds into this false prison. Shame is definitely something that's put on us by other people. For shame, if your parents said things like that. And the reason that I say it's a false prison is that there's things that you can regret. All right? And regret is actually very healthy. Now, not guilt, right? Not feeling guilty, but simply just to regret. Say, wow, I regret that. And now I will take actions to no longer have that happen again. And that's a very healthy way to live. We see what we did. We regret it in some way, shape, or form. And we make a promise to ourselves and to the world not to do that again. And there's no need to be embarrassed about it or feel shameful about it because some of us are going to make mistakes. The shame part and the embarrassment part is this idea of that we did something in such a way that's so awful that we deserve to feel shame. We deserve to feel embarrassed. And those feelings are the ones that we put on ourselves. Because ultimately, yeah, we're going to make mistakes in life. Yeah, and we're going to do things that might not be all that fun to look at. But when we start thinking of embarrassment, just to give you kind of an example, I remember in third grade, this was a period where I was embarrassed and felt shame. And so what happened was there was this kid in class. His name was Todd Wild. I remember this perfectly and vividly. And I'm turning 50 this year. But anyway, he said, hey, I dare you to go up to Mrs. Pasculo, who was it was a teacher, but also our recess lady, and say to her, I see your titties. Well, I didn't know what titties were in third grade. So I'm like, yeah, I'll say it. Why not? And so I went up and I said, I see your titties. And everybody laughed, which made me feel incredibly embarrassed. I felt like they were laughing at me. And I also felt really bad because they might also be laughing at her. And whether Todd knew what titties were or not, I have no idea, nor do I care. But then what happened was this. My parents immediately got called. They come down, and then they cast this shame upon me. How could I do such a thing? How could I do such a thing? And this feeling of shame came over me. And so I went from embarrassment because I'm like, oh my God, obviously that was something, I don't know what it was, to this feeling of shame, like, oh, I really hurt somebody and I did something so terrible and so horrible. And I didn't even know what I did because I didn't know what they were at the time, right? I didn't know. And so here I'm getting this shame upon me and this embarrassment upon me, and I don't even know what I did. I just know that on some level it was wrong. And apparently it was so wrong that my parents had to get involved in this and that and the other. And I'm like, I just said words, right? And to me, meaningless words, right? And nobody explained to me at the time like what it was. And eventually they did. And I was like, oh my, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Um, and if they would have just explained that to me, it's like, hey, do you know what they are? I said, no, I just said words. And they go, well, this is what it means. It's like, oh, yeah, that probably wasn't a good thing to say. I'll make sure that I don't say words I don't know to people, or I'll ask questions of what they are before I say words, right? And it could have been a very educational experience, but at the time it was all about shame, which was all also about embarrassment. And that stuck with, I mean, obviously I still remember it to this day. So it had a major impact on my life. Well, we take things like that and we create these prisons in our mind, and then we put themselves in there and we say, oh, I'm bad and I'm wrong, and I burden that responsibility, and I bear that responsibility every single day of my life, not necessarily maybe for this, but for things that are similar, because shame and embarrassment have no discernment on what they're connected to. And depending on how much that we feel that shame or feel that embarrassment, we can totally create this idea that we're bad, and that the self itself is bad, and that the things I do are bad, and that means that I don't have any value, and that also means that I hurt other people, and that I am somebody who hurts other people. And when we start looking at these ideas, and we imprison our minds thinking that now I am something because of this incident, when all I said were words I didn't even know the meaning to. Why would that be a lifelong prison sentence? To say a word that you don't know the meaning to? You know? And then when you think about it that way, you're like, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. I wouldn't feel any shame or embarrassment. I said words that I didn't know the meaning to. It's like, okay. And then we can be embarrassed. Well, maybe I should have known. I was in third grade. You know? It was the farthest thing on my mind of needing to know. And so we can continue that shame and embarrassment in ourselves. And then, because we felt shame and embarrassment, we can put that on shame and embarrassment on somebody else. That maybe we think, oh, well, you should have known better. What does that mean? You should have known better. They didn't know better. So whether they should or shouldn't have, they didn't. So again, we start punishing because we were once punished. And these are things that can stay in your mental arena for a lifetime. You know, believe me, I'm well aware of all the things that I've done that have been embarrassing in my life, you know, because I was taught that embarrassment is like death. And then if I embarrassed myself, it's one thing. If I embarrass somebody else, that's shame. And so I should be shameful for that. And shameful is such a horrible, horrible sensation and word to cast upon somebody else, or to even create for yourself. And so I just want you to relieve yourself of these moments right now by understanding this is a false prison to keep your mind in, because we are going to do these things. We are going to make mistakes in life. We are going to say things that maybe we wish we didn't say, or do things that we wish we didn't do, right? However, when we have a sense of regret, okay, not this horrible burden, not this deep responsibility, not this weight on your shoulders, but simply say, wow, I regret saying that. And now I will choose to make sure that I don't say something like that again. It's easy. In and out. Done. There's no resentment. There's no lasting feelings. There's no weight on your shoulders. There's no feeling bad. There's no feeling like you did something, totally wrong, and that there's nothing that you can do to make up for it. And, I'm not really sure, but I'm sure that Mrs. Pascula probably doesn't even remember it at this point. And maybe Todd does, and maybe Todd doesn't. I don't even know if my parents do. I think I'll go ask them. I'm with them. See what they say. But anyway, I'm the only one that's holding on to that moment. And that's what shame and embarrassment does to somebody, which is why it's a false prison. Because that was just one single, very small moment that took a matter of seconds. And then if you add the time being talked to about it, a matter of minutes in third grade. But if I keep it with me my whole time, my whole life, that and feel that guilt, right? Then what does that do for me? Except bring me down every single day. and make me something bad or wrong because I did this. So if you're experiencing shame or embarrassment in your life, give yourself permission to just step away from it for a minute. Give yourself permission to be able to say, yeah, I said this and I regret it. And, that's that, right? And when you feel that sense of regret and take steps to not do it again, you're free. Because we're all going to make those mistakes. But the worst thing that you can do for yourself is keep yourself in a prison of the mind over these instances that make us who we are, these instances that we can grow from and learn from and continue to grow from and learn from. So that is a quick video on a huge training of the false prisons of the mind. But be nice to yourself. Give yourself a break because you deserve it. And continue just to say, you know what, I'm going to work on making sure that I don't do those things in the future. Which for me is think before I say something, which is probably pretty good advice to learn from 3rd grade on anyway. But anyway, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this training. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. Share it with a friend if you think it's going to be impactful for them. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.